Thank you for coming. Welcome to Full Stack Strategy, where I'm going to encourage you to play outside of your playground. Advice I should have taken myself much earlier in my career. Let's talk a little bit about this, right? First thing you might be wondering is, who is this guy, right? Who's this guy up here? Quick little bit on me. Really, originally a jazz studies major, obviously, right? This is all jazz, right? It's about laying down the rhythm section, the bottom line. That's what good strategy does. Then I found my way into planning. A creative director took me aside and said, I think you'd make a great planner in the late 1900s. This happened. I had no idea what that even was at that time. I eventually found my way to be part of the second ever graduating class of the Miami Ad School. Back then it was called the Account Planning Boot Camp, where I trained under Jane Newman and Douglas Atkin, and some of those first wave people. A round of applause for Jane Newman. No, none of this would be here if it wasn't for Jane Newman, right? Who trained directly with Stanley Pollitt, came over to Chiat Day, and then the rest is history here in the US. I worked at some other agencies, and then I ended up working at a place called the Richards Group, which is now called TRG. And one of the best bits of advice I can give you, I started teaching as soon as I possibly could in my career. To me, teaching and doing strategy is like dancing about dancing. They're exactly the same thing, right? You learn more while you're teaching. So I started doing that as soon as I could. In 2002, I taught advertising research at SMU for about 12 years, on top of learning what I was doing at the Richards Group. And I also do a marketing technology class with my partner, Chris Farrell here, colleague in Strategic Arms, where we go down to UT Austin. But you don't stop learning. The best advice I can give you is don't ever stop learning. Just like a shark should never stop swimming, right? Don't stop learning. I am a graduate of James Herman's MAE, Master of Advertising Effectiveness, back in 2023, when you could take the exam without AI. So I worked hard for that distinction. All the people taking this class now, guess what? Everybody's graduating with distinction. I wonder how that happened, right? And then most recently, literally a month ago, I went and trained with the Ehrenberg Bass Institute. So I'm a graduate of the Ehrenberg Bass Institute, where I've consorted with the Dark Lord of Penetration himself, Byron Sharp. Fergus O'Carroll recently asked me, did you look him in the eyes? In fact, he's quite a kind, gentle man, has a wonderful taste for wine. He's done great things for the marketing industry. And the wonderful Jenny Romaniuk, queen of analogy, just a really wonderful soul and someone who continues to learn and help us better understand how brands grow. So that's just a little bit about me, and I've worked on a bunch of different things over many years. So I realized when we fixed all this stuff, we removed the clicker. So I am just going to wing it with the space bar. Often in strategy, we're asked to tell the future, predict what the next thing is going to happen, right? How many of you felt like you've had to try and predict the future for your clients on behalf of whatever it is that's going on, okay? The topic that I'm going to talk about today is, in fact, an attempt to do this. This was born out of a past couple of years, a partnership I had with Bibe and Madison. Anyone know Bibe and Madison out of Berlin? Strategy Pints? Any Bibe and Madison fans in the house? Right? I see a couple, right? I've had the great fortune to work with her and teach with her on a number of different things. And this topic was really born out of conversation I was having with my colleagues back at TRG, whether it be Chris Farrell or Monica Lauder in the audience today, or with Biba. And to be honest, where I ended up, like most things in predicting the future, is really nothing new. The question is how do you pull it off? And it wouldn't be a good strategy presentation without the setting of context. And then we're going to get to some game show interactivity, because it was promised in the blurb, so it shall be done. So I'm going to be looking for some engagement, some hand raising. At a certain point, we're going to bring Slido into the mix, and we're going to get our Slido on. Why am I saying this is nothing new? Have you heard of the T-shaped employee, right? Raise your hand if you heard of the T-shaped employee. Raise it. Okay, okay. Not bad, not bad. Essentially, it suggests that over the course of a career, you have a broad base of knowledge across the top, and then you probably have one declared major in which you go deep. So you have broad horizontal understanding with one vertical that goes deep on whatever that might be. This was actually born out of the 1990s in the computer industry, when computer folks were starting to realize, you know what, you need to know the hardware, you need to know the software, you need to know the network, and you need to know the human, right? Everything that rotates around technology. Hence also why it was a T, right? Because it was born in the tech industry, or I'd like to think so, right? Boy, but because there's lots of other shapes and lots of other letters and lots of other symbols and signs, we can take this analogy and metaphor and we can run with it. So there's the I-shaped person, or the E, right? Or the X, or the M, or the T, or the pi. The Future of Strategy report that WARC publishes every year, and thank you for missing Anne-Marie Corwin, because let's face it, you can download the PDF and I'll do a great podcast about it. But you're not going to hear this one perhaps in another way. But nod to Anne-Marie, because in 2023, the topic that I'm talking about tonight, they refer to as the total strategist. In 2024, they refer to it as the whole strategist. I see on some of your LinkedIn, some of you say you're an integrated strategist. This year in 2025, in the next room, they're calling it the systemic strategist. This is, in essence, a strategist who thinks beyond their core competency. It's as if they have a major and have declared minors, maybe even a double major, into the other strategic arts. And that's really what this focus is all about. Why am I calling it, why are we calling it full stack strategy, right? Remember this one. This is strategically placed here. If you don't like the concept of full stack, key-shaped employee. So we're going to come back to that in a moment. But why is this even important? I'm going to give you some context. I'm going to help you understand the why behind this. Perhaps one of the most appropriate ways to use the why is on stage in front of a bunch of skeptical strategists, right? I'm going to take you on a little bit of a time travel. The agency I worked at had a moment in 2020, right, where we had a chance to rebuild and look back at our practice. And we did like a meta-analysis of where the industry had been up to that point. And one of the things we looked back on was essentially what was going on with how ads were being made. So we're going to go way back in time. Take me on a quantum leap with, join me, right? Gen X deep cut, there are going to be a couple of those tonight, occupational hazard. Let's think back to ad agency models circa 80s and 90s. You know what it's kind of like? It was kind of like a pizza parlor, all right? Just play along, right? Of course it is, Christopher. Client, customer comes into the process and says, you know what? I want a pizza. It's if clients back then already knew what they want. I want a 30-second TV ad. There were no 6-second TV ads back then. They want a 30-second TV ad. What happened in agency land? Boom, the clock started ticking. The back of the house was not working. They had nothing to do. That's where the ping pong and the pinball machines and all that stuff, right? They weren't doing any work until someone asked for something. In this case, they want a pizza. So what happens in a pizza parlor? Well, first thing, customer service says order up, right? What kind of toppings you want with that? Dough maker waits for the order, starts the flip and the knead and the rolling, right? And right after that, who comes next? Boom, the chef, perhaps with the beret, right? That has the special ingredients and the training, and do not touch my things, these are my things, right? It goes from the chef, yeah, he just did an accent. Packaging now has the finished form based on the order, and then it goes off to delivery. This could be to the table, or this could be somewhere in another neighborhood, right? So traditional ad agencies really work like this, right? Pizza comes in, everybody's sitting around waiting for the other person to do another thing, just like an old relay race, right? Now, if any of you attended SratFest last year, you saw an agency talk about the group run, right? So again, nothing's new, because part of what I'm going to be pushing towards here is, in essence, what is happening with time compression and why we need to be much more fluent and much more multilingual when it comes to the strategic arts. Now, if you took an X-ray of this whole process, what you saw on the front end, guess what they did? They prepped, in the middle they baked, and the back end they delivered, right? Never the twain shall meet. A super, super, super efficient process when every order is fully anticipated, when every order, in fact, is a pizza. But then what happens to the pizza parlor when the customer just comes in and says, you know what, I'm just hungry. Customer service says, you want some pizza? No, I've been eating too much of that. I don't want pizza anymore, right? I want some other little rectangular things I can consume. What happens? What happens to the back of the house? What happens to the process? Well, the agile agency at that time, just like the agile pizza parlor would have said, you know what? They don't want pizza, but guess what? We got a dough maker and a chef. We can make sandwiches. Let's get nonlinear. Chef and packaging say, you know what? We could do soups and salads. You could put my topping in your container. Boom, that's a vessel for vegetables, AKA a salad. Try it in a bread bowl. Customer service, let's upsell, right? You could do soups as well. Sauces become soups, bread bowl and breadsticks to go. You get to see where this, and packaging delivery is like, you know what? Maybe we don't even need the food. I've got car, I've got GPS. Let's just go deliver packages around town, right? So the back of the house suddenly starts to become equipped and collaborative when they start to respect and appreciate and to blur the lines perhaps between how they had interacted in the past. Only possible, again, if there's that mutual trust and process and understanding and fluency in what they're trying to accomplish. Dare I say, if I went back to the 80s and 90s, I don't know if I've spelled it out, right? But for the eagle, analogy-eyed individual in the room, and let's face it, strategists, that's what we are. We love our analogies, we love our metaphors. This is pretty much what was going on. This is why we were working like pizza parlors. Clients would come in and say, I want a 30-second ad, or I want a TV ad, and everybody else knew what to do, right? The meetings and planning was the briefs, so yes, we are the dough makers. Creative department, the chef, media department, right? Production and delivery at the end. You can see how that worked. And guess what? That worked just like a relay race. So we had all of this wasted time. Until someone asked for the thing that everyone was ready to make, everyone was kind of sitting around. So then the goal was, we need enough people coming in asking for things so that we're not all sitting around, because we're billing our time, particularly back then. Again, that's 80s and 90s. So let's bounce ahead. That went on for a long time. Did it work? Who knows? Who knows? Did any of that ever work? I mean, again, most advertising simply doesn't work. And then digital came along, and boom, reborn from the ashes. The traditional process is back again. We had a chance to pivot, but old habits died hard. But this was the digital edition, right? Now the client wasn't asking for ads or particular kinds of ads. They're asking for clicks and lots of vanity metrics and make this thing move yesterday and this thing move tomorrow and put it in an Excel spreadsheet, and I'm going to manage you and indict you with it again and again and again. And then we can A/B test things along the way. Now, during this time, it's interesting. The vocabulary, the language changed in the industry. For anybody who lived through this, I see a couple of you in the room, all of a sudden scopes and analytics and banners and posts and wireframes and search and native and paid and owned. These are an entirely new vocabulary to a typical ad agency. And then this was a really interesting thing. All of a sudden, we started hiring people that had no advertising background. Tech people, platform people, programmers, coders coming in the mix. SMEs, subject matter experts. And they looked in on this, and they're like, you know what? I bring insights, I bring ideas, I bring impact in any meeting I go into. I don't just have to wait for a planner to come up with an insight, a creative to come up with an idea, or a media person to bring the impact. They're like, what are you guys doing? You're too bulky, right? Like, you don't move fast enough. And when they dropped in, the shit started to get nonlinear. And that's a good thing. All of a sudden, conversations were happening out of order because more outputs called for more collaboration. So this whole stay out of my lane became, hey, my lane is your lane, said the digital strategist and digital creative and digital fill in the blank back then. That really kind of disrupted a lot of culture inside of agency life. Fast forward to today, 2015 plus, right? Ish today, right, over the last decade. Now clients come in and say, you know what? We just need to grow. We don't know what this to move or that to move or what we want. We just need to grow. Oh my God, now what do we do? And so this is what's going on. Essentially, when a client asks for brand growth, it's no longer just ads. Just that teeny little portion of the fourth P of the 4 Ps. Quick quiz. What are the 4 Ps in marketing? Can anyone recite them out to me? Blurt it. Anybody? Product, price, place. And what's the one that we most often deal with? Promotion, and not even the full promotion, just a teeny little piece of that promotion piece, right? But that being said, we now have an infinite opportunity set of choices across a fragmented landscape to help our clients then grow. So we still have 3 core capabilities: insight, ideas, and impact. But with all the time compression, and let's face it, we've got people that can come up with ideas collaboratively across those lines. Do we continue with the linear process? Oh, hell no. It often starts to look a little something like this. Now we've got more people working together earlier together, working through the process. So that time compression, that demand for short-termism, the fact that our canvas has expanded beyond our classic media choices has really enabled a workplace where now we have disciplines working together sooner, earlier, and often, right, to accomplish some kind of growth. Ideally, when this is working well, you get people grow, ideas grow, clients grow. You worry less about the perfect brief, and you focus more on having the perfect room. A great quote from Andy Grayson, head of strategy at Arts and Letters, that I cannot get out of my mind, right? We obsess, we fetishize over creative briefs, when really maybe it's the group of people, the creative problem solvers working alongside one another from the beginning and having that rapport that we could be focused on. But to do that, it's going to take more shared fluency. This is a topic that came up in my previous breakout session with the team I was on. Teams need more shared fluency about how advertising and marketing works. James gave you a wonderful primer on that early. You can go deeper. You can go deeper into the subject. And this is something I want to encourage everybody to go do. To be honest, I can no longer trust my clients even know how advertising works. It's the question that, in fact, we don't want to ask each other either, right? Oh my gosh, I really don't know how to answer that question. And so Dr. Grace Kite, through magic numbers, put together a set of numbers. If you look across the continents from UK to USA, beyond, this is the percentage of marketers who are actually trained. As James said, they could have been trained on the wrong things. They could have a really bad case of Kotleritis. What is that? I'll get to that a bit later. But the point of this is that, raise hands, how many of you are trained or certified in marketing or advertising? Okay, you feel as if you are, right? Good, that's a good number of, guess what? You don't need to be trained and certified to work in marketing and advertising. Maybe that's part of the problem, right? If I want to be a tattoo artist or esthetician, right? Or a plumber, or a doctor, or a tax attorney, I need to be licensed and certified. But no, I just need to walk over to a notary, right? Sign a piece of paper, LLC, this one, S Corp, whatever. Boom, I'm in business, right? And maybe that is part of the problem that most advertising is a form of comms waste. Did you know 84% of all advertising is absolutely ineffective? 84%. Think about that failure rate. Right? What restaurant would you go to that had an 84% failure rate? What hospital would you go to? What anything would you go to? Kate Newstead, marketing scientist when she was at Ehrenberg Bass, helped lead this study. She's now at LinkedIn B2B. But that is a chilling number, 84%. Guess what? 6 out of 7 digital media impressions do not pass the attention memory threshold. So low attention media. Thanks to Dr. Karen Nelson-Field at Amplified, we know more about that information. So we can make better media choices that actually help increase the probability that our creative is going to work. But if we don't know that, boom, we end up with this problem. And last but not least, if anyone from System 1 is in the room, whether it's the work of Adam Morgan, Peter Fields, Andrew Tyndall's done quite a bit of work on this. Dull advertising. There's an extraordinary cost to dull. And let's face it, a lot of my clients don't have the budgets to be boring. Right? Because advertising is often the last thing that people want to see. Why are we in this situation, right? Because in essence, we don't know what we're doing, right? And so we're going to learn a little bit about our gaps here. Marketing for too long has been in the dark ages. And there's a lot of fundamentals, things that will never change because they're based on the way human markets work, that I literally didn't even know until 2017 and dig in hard in 2020. And I don't know about you, but in the pandemic, I went into a deep learning mode. And I've had to do a whole hell of a lot of unlearning. My brain has become an etch-a-sketch. All sorts of things I was taught and told early in my planning career, learning on the fly, today are the reason why I pulled all my hair out. It's the reason, that joke never gets old, by the way. The reason why I don't have enough, right, metal on the wall when it comes to the kind of campaigns we're working on. Quick pop quiz. If someone in this room, I'm going to pick on Isaac. Isaac from Tracksuit, everybody. Tracksuit, we love Tracksuit. Sponsor. Let's say Isaac were to spontaneously combust. He were to catch on fire. Oh my God, we've got a room full of humans. We've been trained on this, right? What would we tell Isaac to do to put out the fire? We tell him 3 things. What we say? Say it with me. We tell him to stop, drop, and roll. What's the likelihood you're ever going to get a chance to use that advice ever in your life? But meanwhile, I've got a room full of strategists. What if I ask the question, how do you grow a brand? Everybody, come on. Oh, someone's going to take out some geometric shapes, an easel, right? Quote some Wittgenstein, Maslow's hierarchy, I don't know, right? All the things. The good news is there's maps for these territories, right? There are fundamentals that, in fact, can predict, right, how this works. And we can find ways then to simulate, emulate, and replicate that out in the market. But you have to know, and knowing is half of the battle. There's a great body of information, a unifying theory for marketing advertising effectiveness is emerging from a number of different partners, some of which we even have in the room here. I'd say a lot of it's being led with the phalanx of Ehrenberg Bass out of University of Adelaide, in a faraway place, South Australia. The IPA, which to be honest is what the 4As would like to be if it grew up a little bit. Ooh, did he say it? Mini MBA, Mark Ritson, Ken Lyon, Nielsen, APG, Amplify, Magic Numbers, Master of Advertising Effectiveness, James Herman and his whole crew. We've got Tracksuit, System 1. There's a lot of different players converging, cross-validating, peer review, replicating studies that help us better understand that, guess what? Again, there are maps for these territories. But how many of us actually know these maps? So let's play a game. Let's find out, right? This is the participation piece. This will get to the answer as to why we're calling it full stack, as if I was leaving you on a cliffhanger. Okay? So please join me now. Join me now at slido.com. You can hit the QR code. I think you know how to do this. This is part of postmodern conference hygiene. And we're going to do it question by question. It's going to be anonymous, so none of you are going to be called out individually for knowing or not knowing anything, unless you want to blurt something, right? So everybody got that. You'll be able to see it again here in a second. So let's play a game. Here's the game that we're going to play. We're going to rank these from 1 to 10. What are these? These are the drivers of advertising profitability. There's something James said that referenced this earlier, but he didn't go deep into it. It was great because it's like, I wanted to do it on the stage. Okay, so we're going to get to do it together. I'm going to name some of these things. Target segmentation, right? Think about all the great personas that 25 personas and the great keynote decks, and Yolanda, the yoga user that still drinks Jamba Juice and listens to this Spotify playlist, right? That's our audience, right? Ratio of brand to performance, right? 60-40, multimedia mix, lay down, flighting, right? This is just the way in which media sort of pulses out in the marketplace. Brand size, creative quality, right? Budget setting across lots of different things. So what I'd like you to do, and maybe you're already doing it, is join. And what you can do now is, and we're going to be able to see in real time what this looks like, hopefully, as you start to sort these, right? So just start, pick the top 3. What you think the top 3 might be. Start to vote. Has anyone joined? Connection lost, reconnecting. Oh, that's not cool. Can people see it? Can you see it on your little screens? Awesome, great. I think I may have lost my Wi-Fi while I was up here. Potentially. Ba-dum-bum. All right, someone joining, help me understand what's going on here, because I don't know if this is going to be sort of fixed given the things that we're doing, right? So, what do you think the number 1 is? The one thing that when you do this, when you prioritize this thing, right, this is the thing that's actually going to make the advertising spend more profitable, right? And when we spend advertising dollars, we want to get money back. That's the whole point, exactly, right? Yes? What do you think the top 3 things are? What do you think the very last thing is? At this point, I'm riffing because I don't think this is going to show up on the screen. Anybody? See. Brand performance number 1, 32 respondents in. Okay, you can see it. Awesome. Brand performance number 1. Crush the bottom of the funnel. Oh, Carolyn, you're a lifesaver. Look at this. Okay, here's what it's looking like. Brand performance is number 1. Creative quality number 2. Multimedia mix. Target segmentation. Brand size. Budget setting across portfolios. right? So that's the list. Paul Dyson, a very famous econometrician, did this study, this very same study with ThinkBox and Kantar over 3 years at different intervals, before the pandemic, in 2020, and 2023. And what was really interesting is he asked it among 700 global marketers, in essence, our clients. And he did that study 3 times. And when he did that study 3 times, he pretty much got the same results each time. And in fact, the client's results in some ways were not that much different from your results, in that they were decidedly a little bit wrong. Although I will say in the room, you got one of them right, which is going to be the second one, which I'll reveal here in a second, unless the scoring has changed since then. Oh, yeah, okay, that's interesting. Things have mixed up, okay? So clients believe it's multimedia mix, ratio brand performance, target segmentation, but then econometrics comes in. So the human is removed from the equation, and we start to look at the real empirical evidence. 28,000 campaigns, again, over those 3 different waves of data, show that, in fact, it's upside down. In fact, brand size is the #1 profitability multiplier at 20x, with creative quality as the #2 at 12x. Now, here's the good news, bad news, right? Bad news is how many of you have the special button that you can just immediately push for your client that just makes them the biggest brand in their category? Anybody have access to said button? If you do, you're sitting on a gold mine. Oh, Isaac's got it now. The bad news is, in fact, that can't happen, right? The good news is the one thing we have at our disposal is creative quality, right? Which is the second one. So at 12x, right, that's got leverage. That's a really good thing to have at our access, right? And then everything that falls beneath that, look at how that cliff just drops off creative quality. But if you were to add all those up, essentially, if we're trying to get to the moon, which is the outcome is our clients want to be the bigger brands, how many clients come to you and say, you know what, we want to get smaller. We want to shrink. We want to retract. Never, ever, ever, right? If brand size is getting to the moon, creative quality is our rocket, guess what the fuel is? Everything underneath it. Creative quality is nothing if it's invisible, right? Build a cathedral, put it in the desert, and wonder why there's no congregation. Have a beautiful, wonderful, insightful ad, and then go hide it in the wrong media with improper spend, right? That's a great way to live a career like air guitar, right? And the one thing we don't get back in life is time. So the way that we spend our time in this profession, we should at least know how to put the fuel in the rocket. And so inevitably what we start to see here is a pattern. The things that we have under control and the things we don't have under control. Why is brand size #1? The outcome. In fact, all of these are levers. This one thing is an actual governed law. Does anyone know the governed law that predicts that brand size will always be the biggest thing that brands have at their disposal? Anybody know that law? Anybody want to blurt it out? I got a couple of ringers in the room, so I know they know the answer. Okay, we'll reveal that in a moment. Let's move on. The point of this is, and this gets to the whole shtick, is essentially when you look at this, you kind of have a Rosetta Stone about how to accomplish brand growth over time based on our core competencies. Think of them as strategy stacks, right? Us as classic brand planners, brand strategists, creative strategists, we often are focused on contributing to the creative quality through insight and briefs, et cetera, right? And understanding our audience, right? Target segmentation. If we start to divide up into the other strategic varietals like media strategy, which is often a lot of budget setting and fiscal responsibility, bring comms and connections into the mix. You've got channel planning. You've got performance, which is a blend, right? You've got data strategy. Essentially what you have here are layers to accomplishing this one thing that all of our clients want to accomplish, brand size. They all want to grow. Notice that it takes all of them to make that happen, not just one. You could have the best creative brief in the world, totally fetishize it, win all the internal awards, but if it never made it out into the market, right, it never happened. It never happened. So that being said, this leads us then to this analogy that we need this shared fluency. As we level up and become more senior as strategists, we should have a better understanding of how everything connects. Did we really think that all we had to do is get better at insights and creative briefs, and 20, 25 years later get older and more expensive and just want more money? Did we really think that was going to work out for us? Or as we leveled into becoming senior strategists and directors and CSOs and things, that what was responsible for us is really understanding how all the parts play together. Not just focusing on the dots, but being the connectors of those dots. And this is, in essence, all the different things that we need. My ability, your ability, our ability to actually improve creative quality can actually be enhanced by our understanding of how the rest of this works. Know enough to be dangerous. Declare your double minor. Start to build a double major over the course of your career so that you become far more effective later on in your career. Think of it like that. Double minors, double majors, or sommeliers. I'm full of analogies, right? The sommelier who only focuses on red wine, how successful. When you level up as sommeliers, they can pair anything together. The cigar with the cheese, with the food, with the season, with the time of day. They get to know the person and orchestrate all those things together, right? So this could have been called a strategy sommelier session, but to be honest, way too pretentious. Way too pretentious. Instead, since everything's interconnected, our knowledge should be as well. So think of it as stacks. This is essentially your full stack of strategy knowledge that is necessary. Because if you remove those stacks, it's just like a game of Jenga, right? Brand size would fall along with it. Remove that mix, you will not have a brand that's going to grow, even if they have the other 3 Ps going for them. Creating that mental availability, preloading the brand in the brain is really our job. But do we know how to do our job nowadays? Do you really want to be that strategist who just knows the one thing, the one hit, just the one single? You want the greatest hits over time. Strategy with a capital S. That's where full stack comes from. So let's play in our remaining time. Let's play Double Jeopardy, because brand size was number 1 at the top of the Paul Dyson econometric stack because of the law of Double Jeopardy. Yes, okay, play along with me, folks. Here's what we're going to do. Now, this is where things get complicated. Oh, I so wished it was going to be reconnecting at this point, and I'm afraid what I would have to do to make, yeah. Reload it? Or is Carolyn going to be my guardian angel? Okay, I'm going to stop it, and then I'm going to restart it. The joys of live Slido with unfamiliar Wi-Fi. I'm thinking maybe, oh, you know what? What if I hotspot it? What if I hotspot it? Because this will make it more fun, which means I need to bring my phone closer to my thing. And here we go. This might work, might not. Hotspotting. Boom. Oh, look at that. Okay, so yeah, that's what you saw previously. Okay, so let's dive in. What does the law of double jeopardy describe? Everybody jump in. I want to see where it's going. I want to see where it's going. What we're going to be doing now is revealing perhaps some knowledge gaps, which is one of the best things that you can do as soon as possible, right? Market share predicts ROI, smaller brands. Again, I got some ringers in the room. Curious to see how they're going to play along. Smaller brand. Look at this. Okay, we got 20 people in the mix now. We got 23. See, this is more fun. It's like a horse race. 27, right? Market share predicts, right? You got, oh my God, 32, 33. Where'd all these people come from? Boom, market share predicts ROI at 55%. Okay, right, we're going to close it out, we're going to show what the correct answer is. And guess what? You've got an opportunity for learning. Double jeopardy is the law that smaller brands always have fewer buyers who buy slightly less often, AKA are slightly less loyal. And when I say loyal, I mean behaviorally loyal, which means frequency of purchase. Not attitudinally loyal, which is a whole nother problem, right? But yes, smaller brands have fewer buyers. Bigger brands have more buyers who are slightly more loyal. And guess what happens when you have more buyers? More people shopping, right? And in fact, when you have more buyers, you probably also have more light and infrequent buyers, which is, guess what? Most people in the category in any given day. We'll get to that in a moment. But until we get to that, let's do it this one, because this is really going to give it away. Which audience group is the largest in any category? I don't care if you're selling Velcro, remote controls, lanyards, chairs, SaaS-based B2B blah, 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 cars, Mazdas. I don't care what you're selling. If it can be purchased by a human, which audience group is the largest in any category? Not yet in-market buyers, current heavy buyers, in-market buyers. Okay, you all get a gold star for this one. Yes, give your a round of applause, everybody. Yes, most people are not in market, right? Most people have not bought the things yet that you are most likely selling. Maybe we do one more now. And in fact, let's just break back to this. Okay, let me just kind of give you some, let's get nerdy behind why that's true. Right? Did you have a little chill? Did I just do something? Did I have some psychic power? And you go talk to Karen about that. I literally felt like okay, there we go. Raise your hand if you've heard of the banana chart. Anybody heard of the famous banana chart? That's how famous it is, right? This is learning. Or the NBD Dirichlet. Anybody heard of that one? A couple. But have you heard of the banana pancake chart being debuted on the stage here at SratFest in New York 2025? Applause. Anyone heard of the banana pancake chart? No, because I made it up a few days ago. This is what markets look like when our clients dream sweet dreams. This is what most of our clients are thinking when they come to us with all of their concerns and minimal budget. They believe that, in fact, what any market, human market, looks like, this goes back to what James was talking about, human markets will always be the shape over time, regardless, because this is what happens. If you look at number of people, population size, and the number of times someone purchases it into this category, in our clients' fever dream minds, it is a luscious stack of banana pancakes with a loyalty syrup covering the top that, in fact, like mayo, as Karen talked about last night, is both a glue and a lubricant. And in this case, what it is doing is lubricating constant commerce, where across every single buyer group, there are people that are just buying, buying, buying. Everybody's in category all the time, 100% of the time, right? If we simply just spam them hard enough with an ad that tries to persuade them better, cheaper, faster, we will drive them into market. We will create demand. They will become an automaton that immediately wants to buy a thing that they've never thought of, and that is our dream world that our clients dream about. In fact, that's not the real world. The real world's actually weird, as Byron Sharp would like to say. There is one ingredient, however, in a banana pancake syrup mix. If you had to think of the one ingredient that, in fact, better replicates what an actual real human market looks like, which would it be? The banana, the pancakes, or the loyalty syrup? Which would it be? Banana. Now you know the banana chart. This is the closest thing we have to absolute physics in marketing, and most of you probably don't know about it. I didn't know about it until about 2017. Then I was like, nah, not for me, moving on. And then you start to realize you cannot get away from this. Planes are built, pilots fly in land planes knowing gravity. This is gravity in our industry. The shape of the banana is the shape of essentially what any human market looks like. I don't care what you're working on, it looks like this. Most people aren't buying right now. And whatever the purchase cycle is, most people aren't buying. The most people buying are only buying once. And then it drops off. And then all of a sudden, all these people are these heavy category buyers. They drop off in these teeny little audiences. And you can't get growth from small audiences. Have you ever heard the phrase, fish where the fish are? Fishermen would look at this. What side of the chart you think the fisherman would go fish on for brand growth, left or right? Left. And as the Bluth family would tell you, there's always money in the banana chart. What side of the banana chart do you think the money is in? The left. So what this helps us realize that, in fact, most people that are contributing growth to any category are light, infrequent, indifferent, cognitive misers. The last thing they're thinking about are brands, our advertising, or the category at all. If you're wondering where 95.5 comes from, it comes from this. If you wonder where Double Jeopardy comes from, it comes from this. If you've ever read How Brands Grow, Red Book or Blue Book, every single extrapolation in those books has come from this one model. Where do you think the most loyal, quote unquote, behavioral loyal person to a brand is on this chart? Left or right? That's what I thought. I almost fell off the stage. Final Destination, Part 8, it almost happened. No, in fact, they use the category so much, they're totally polygamously loyal. They have a repertoire of a high quantity of brands. Statistically speaking, from a survey, where someone's going to look most loyal is over here, because they've only bought once, and they bought one brand. Now, if I extend the distance in the survey, I can actually make loyalty look more or less group of people, but that's nothing other than an artifact how the research is done. It does not map the real world. And in fact, a light user, when they pick one brand once, do you think it's going to be a really big brand that most people know about, or just a small, teeny little niche, vintage, esoteric, Williamsburg, Bedford Avenue kind of situation? Kind of like the tacos that Hannah's going to be enjoying maybe in the next couple of days, right? Big brand or small brand you think they're choosing? Big brand. And you wonder why big brands stay big. It's because they have a natural monopoly of light users. Because more of these people are going to have that brand in mind because they're actually spending reach to penetration with the creative that, in fact, is attracting that attention, right? So the NBD Dirichlet, the banana chart, is the one thing you need to know. And if you think you don't need to know it, this should argue otherwise. And this is how I'm going to close. Because if you don't know this, here's the thing that you don't know. Because what if I told you there was a single theory of buyer behavior that could explain and predict all of the following? How often do buyers come to market to buy? How many heavy and versus light buyers exist within your category? What % of category buyers buy each brand? How buyers choose between different competing brands? How loyal are customers, right? This is an important list. If this does not interest you, if this is not of importance, I don't know what you're doing. These are all the things we need to be doing. And guess what? They're already predicted by the banana chart that was discovered in the 50s. And it's an unbroken model for over 70 years. If you can find evidence of being broken, we could make you a star. We could make you a market research guru. The model holds, the model hasn't broken. And to be honest, if anyone was at the J. Chide Awards last night, we took this photo, right? We played bingo. Guess where the two things that are not being discussed in any of the cases up to the very end of the thing? Out of 1,000 KPIs, there's only one that accurately predicts brand growth. And guess what? Which one it is? Actually, it's penetration. How do you accomplish penetration? Through reach. Man, if we're not doing that, we're not growing brands, we're not doing our job. So we need to bring that into our practice. So we have an opportunity then to learn. And as a key-shaped strategist or a full-stack strategist, what I'm imploring you is to add like little prongs to your key. Just don't focus on creative strategy. Start to bring in some media. Start to bring in some comms. Start to bring in some connections, right? Stack them all up to accomplish, right, that big brand growth size. There's a lot of different institutions you could learn. You could take James' course. Ehrenberg Bass has lots of learnings. IPA, Mini MBA. Ethan Decker, who's doing the virtual session. Notice that there are 4 letters that are not on this slide, and it's the beginning of the alphabet. Guess what those 4 letters are? Damn, the 4 A's. But because we have amazing, right, colleagues and strategic partners in ARM like Andy, we're going to help bring in curriculum into the 4 A's to help us better understand the fundamentals of our practice, right? We need to stop just trading talent and instead training talent. We need to worry less about, but if I train them and they go to another agency, I just wasted money. No, no, no. You need to be worried about something else. What if you don't train them and they stay? Bum, 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 right? So we need to pay it forward. We need to be doing more and helping better understand. I'll throw Miami Ad School into the mix as well. Ethan Cohen here in the front, right? Boom. If you take that class with me, you're definitely going to learn some of this stuff, but this isn't about me. This is about accessible to all these different things we got going on. Read this book. Read that book. Read this book. Weimer Schneider's Eat Your Greens is the guy that came up and quoted the banana chart, made it a very sticky memory structure. In fact, James Herman has a great book, Future Demand. And the one book I always implore a planner to look at nowadays is not John Steele's book. It is Sarah Carter and Les Bennett's great book, How Not to Plan, 66 Ways to Screw It Up, because it actually takes a lot of this fundamental evidence-based marketing and pulls it into everyday practice from a planner's point of view. Final thoughts, please don't look at me like I've become some kind of marketing science nerd. I get messages from colleagues, it's like, you met Byron Sharp and now you don't like creativity. Bullshit, right? I feel freed. I feel free to now worry about creativity more because I'm not worrying about the plumbing anymore, about how the physics of the market work. I am free now to actually spend my time and my precious life energy, the one thing I don't get back, on trying to bring more emotion into the practice. Because when people feel more, they remember more. When they remember more, they buy more. Because essentially we're in the memory-making business. So please make space and room for punk planning. Try new things, but build it on top of the fundamentals. Don't just like wake up one day and go, you know what, I think it's all about cults. Right? In the metaverse, and you create a great LinkedIn carousel and you build a practice around it, and then nothing works, right? Obviously, nothing's going to work. Last thing, and now I'm done. Please learn to unlearn. I had to do so much unlearning. Think of brain as Etch-a-Sketch, right? One of my heroes, the great physicist, Richard Feynman. Follow his rules. I've tried to do this my whole life. 3-step learning model. Find where your gaps are. Some of you may have experienced where those are today. Learn into those gaps, immediately teach that thing back to someone. When you teach something back to someone, you will know how much you know about it. Now you know your gaps and your micro gaps. Learn into those gaps, teach them, right? You can live an entire life that way. In fact, please do. Simply put, teach, 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 teach. We need more teachers, we need more trainers, we need more people setting up the next generation of strategists. And scene. Thank you very much.